So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we got a great guest. If you've seen Maid on Netflix, I think everyone's seen Maid in the world, with 1.9 billion minutes watched, and it's currently second, just behind Squid Games, which I haven't watched yet. Which I think, again, I'm probably the only person that haven't watched it. The guest is fantastic. It's Xavier De Guzman. Xavier, welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks for having me. I hope there's not too much of a lag. I think there's a little bit of a lag on the video here. Is everything good?
It's
clear?
Everything is perfect. My end. Good old modern technology, eh? Who would have thought, back in the day, that we could connect from the UK over to Vancouver, which I think is awesome.
I'll send you a Morse code. I think that's.
I mean, I can remember dial-up internet. Where you had to put it into a phone line and hear that squeaky noise, and it was so slow. And now it's super fast. So before we get on with the interview,
it's funny where it's like I think our generation of dial-up internet, the dial-up aspect of our upbringing gave us more patience than the newer generation, just because like everything's more instantaneous now. So I always laugh at that.
Definitely. I mean, I've got a 20-year-old stepson, and we've been having trouble with our internet in the house, and literally it's like the end of the world if he can't get online gaming. And I'm just thinking back when I was 20, I was never in the house. I was working or partying. But yeah, definitely teenagers have got no patience. If it goes down or it stops, the world stops. But yeah, so we were planning to connect last week. But yeah, you've got a bit of a story of what actually happened. I mean, are you okay? I mean, is everything okay?
Everything's okay. Emotionally, maybe not so much, but after Maid, I took some time to convert a camper. So I bought myself a moving truck, and I completely gutted the back and essentially built myself a tiny home, and decided to go across the country. So we're in like the province right next to the end. So it's called New Brunswick. We wanted to get to Nova Scotia, me and my partner. But then we're in New Brunswick, and the truck decided to say, I'm going to have a problem. So we're actually caught in New Brunswick. And we're stuck here for at least 10 days while the truck is getting serviced in the middle of what they like to call like winter tire season. So a lot of the automotive shops here are busy. So we had to get towed 3 times to 2 different shops to try to just get ourselves serviced and back on the road. So right now the truck is in the shop, and we're just hanging out in a hotel, but no, everything. Do
you know what? I was going to ask you about your tiny home, because you put a post on Instagram of a video of you, and I presume, is that the camper van that you're in?
Yes, that's it.
Yes. Oh, do you know what? I really do hope that, it comes alive again and you can continue your adventures, because, after all that hard work, I suppose that's the trouble with camper vans. It's all good and well having it all really nice inside and it's a home from a home, but at the end of the day, it's still a vehicle, isn't it? It's still got an engine that you rely on getting from A to B. This is why when people in the UK, they go caravanning, you don't see many, as you would say, RVs or camper vans over in the UK. They normally tow the caravans by car and then unhook, and then they can drive around. So I suppose, oh, bless you though. Well, fingers crossed, and I really do hope that it comes back to life, because bless you. So yes, we forgive you. That is obviously a traumatic experience, and I think that I'd be still rocking in a chair right now, just
Oh,
waiting for that phone
yeah.
call. But hopefully you'll get it soon. So talking about the pandemic, because I ask all my guests as like a bit of a check-in. I mean, the last 18 months to 2 years has been crazy for everyone, especially for the entertainment industry and for working actors. I mean, how have you kept positive over the last 18 months? What have you been doing to stay positive and keep moving forwards? And have you learned any new skills over the time of the pandemic and the time of lockdown?
Great question. Very insightful. One big thing that I guess I had to learn, and speaking with other people who seemed to hit a wall during this quarantine, was to really adopt the phrase, it's okay to not be okay.
Mm,
So, as much as everybody wants to try to stay positive, it's about also embracing the days that don't seem so positive and wondering and asking yourself, why do I feel this way? And taking that
mm,
time. So, that aspect of self realization definitely was a growing phase for myself and a whole bunch of other people that I know that kind of hit a wall.
mm,
There was a moment that I think everybody went through because like pandemic hit the first few months, everybody's kind of like, oh, this is nice. I get to be at home all the time. And then
mm,
all of a sudden the lockdown gets extended and then it's like, okay, I think I could still do this. Same routine every day, and then it gets extended again, and now people are starting to drive themselves crazy because essentially it's not okay anymore.
mm. Yeah.
So that was definitely a big thing. I also loved my space that I kind of cultivated. I had myself a little mini garden on my balcony. Um, I took up sourdough baking, so that was fun. I
Okay.
had some sourdough starter that a friend gave me from the beginning of. It actually happened just before quarantine, so like the December before quarantine, a friend of mine gave me what they call sourdough starter,
Mm.
and I kept it alive throughout the entire time that I was at home, and baked a nice loaf of sourdough bread every week. And it was a very interesting phase because I love cooking, but I've never really explored baking.
Mm.
So sometimes the bread would come out amazing, and then other times I'd get this like dense loaf that was just there, and now it's like, okay, let's see how much of this I can at least eat so that it doesn't get wasted. Um, so I did that. I also was lucky enough to kind of give myself a little mini gym space as well, so I was
Mm.
able to still keep somewhat active. Um, and then I just watched a lot of Netflix, which I like to I'd like to say is research because I'm an actor. So I'm
Yeah,
allowed to do all that.
exactly. It is good research. So over the lockdown, you became a baker. It
Mhm.
sounds like a wonderful time. Over the lockdown, I became a teacher because all my girls, I've got two little girls, they were off school. So we had to homeschool
Um,
them. We had to learn how to use certain things on the computer for school. But for me, I'm quite worried about the aftershock of it. It's a bit like an earthquake. I think that we've had this pandemic, and when you were talking about like the mentally, how it's affected people, I don't truly think that we're going to see the extent of that until after the actual, the pandemic is over. I mean, do you feel that there's going to be a big fallout, in the way of mental health from this as a backlash?
um, I think, and I honestly believe that mental health is going to be at an all-time high.
Mm,
Um, Over the last, I'd say, 5 years in particular, therapy has become more mainstream. Just because before then, even now, you'll watch some shows where a character will say, "Oh, well, I'm in therapy," and then another character will scoff at the idea. and you don't see that as much now, and it's becoming more accepted. And not being able to just go out to a pub and just drink your weekend away because you're not sure what's going on in the week, and now you're kind of forced to just talk amongst your peers. I think that's also developing more of a willingness to open up about our feelings. So I'm hoping that this is the direction it's going to go in, where people are just more open and willing to be emotional than just to repress everything. I think everybody's hit that wall to some degree, where the quarantine, they thought they could do it by themselves, and then all of a sudden they realize, no, I need to reach out to somebody. And now all of a sudden, like, they have some kind of online community, and social media has also done a great job of giving people a platform to explore their art. I found that really amusing, where a lot of friends of mine who aren't artists or don't see themselves as artists, and I'll joke with them and tease with them, where it's like, hey, maybe you should try acting or something, and they'll laugh at the idea. But then now I see them do these TikTok videos of them impersonating somebody or doing a voiceover, and the editing that they're doing, like, that's insane to me, and they're doing it. So it's they're getting this creative outlet too that they would have never explored before COVID, because they're just so busy with their 9 to 5.
And I've got to say, when you were saying about obviously getting therapy and how it's becoming more acceptable, here in the UK, it's still quite a taboo thing, because people frown upon it. And the way I look at it is that if you want a healthy body, you go to the gym. So if you want to have a healthy mind, you go to therapy. You speak.
1 million.
So it's the way I look at it, and yeah, I mean, during the pandemic, I felt a lot of pressure being a dad and a husband and going to work throughout the whole pandemic. I felt a lot of responsibility to keep my family safe, and at some points, I felt like it was going to be impossible because the virus was everywhere. But I mean, I had COVID a week and a half ago. So I've just got over COVID, and it was horrible, but I'm glad I got my vaccines, because it would have been a hell of a lot worse. It really did. So let's talk about your career, because before you were gracing our screens, you were kicking asses and taking names as a Muay Thai boxer. How does someone go from being a Muay Thai, martial artist to an actor? It's just a bizarre, flip. I mean, did you get a lucky break, or was it something that you've always wanted to do?
Give you a little correction there. It's Muay Thai, because Muay Thai is a drink.
There we go. This is probably why I'm getting funny phone calls when I'm asking, do you do Muay Thai classes? And they're like, So Muay Thai. I do apologize. So Muay Thai. Martial artist, or would you say a martial artist, or would you say a Muay Thai boxer? I mean, what's the actual term for it?
Either or. I prefer martial artist, because there is a graceful artistic side to this sport, and it's unfortunately not widely practiced in North America. And that was like the big transition point when I went to Thailand and fought and trained in Thailand, and it opened me up to a new world of this sport that I've been doing for 5-6 years at the time. And then when I came back to North America, it didn't fuel me the way it did when I was in Thailand. And so at that point, I had to decide, okay, I need if I don't want to fight anymore, I need to think of another way to essentially make money. And then through that, a friend of mine happened to reach out and say that a production was looking for boxers. And so, because I do have a boxing background as well, that was my introduction to the film world. It was a show called Rookie Blue, and just being on set, seeing essentially what they like to coin as movie magic happening right in front of you. And then later on down the line, seeing the episode and how they actually put it all together was amazing to me. And especially at the time when I was looking for work for money, the paycheck on that job like shocked me as well. So then that also gave me a little bit of a reason to, okay, maybe I can take my talents and put it into here, and I'm not getting hit anymore, or like I'm faking it. So that's also a plus. I don't have to worry so much about getting injured the way I would just being in the ring fighting. So it was a smooth transition going from martial arts into stunts, and then the task of switching over from stunts into being a principal actor was the bigger challenge. There was realizing that it took a lot more work to be the person getting to talk on camera than just to get hit on screen.
I mean, you were really good at Muay Thai. You were, is it lightweight champion of Canada? So did you?
Yeah.
Is there like a career to have in that sport? I mean, did you not want to
Yeah.
pursue that?
Now it comes down to, I guess, the risk that I'm willing to take in terms of what life has to offer. Because if I did want to take that career seriously, I'd have to leave home. I'd have to either fly to Thailand or maybe go to the States and, fight out of a camp in Vegas or something. And to be quite frank, I was scared.
What,
I'd leave.
scared of the punch-in, or just scared of?
No, scared of being on my own, going to a new city and realizing that, okay, this is your life now. As much as I loved traveling at the time, the best part about traveling I found was getting to go home after the trip. But then if I decided to make this a career, then I'd have to pretty much uproot my life and move to a country that I wasn't, I wasn't too, not to say I wasn't familiar with, because I was in Thailand for quite a while training, but it's like, it was still foreign, where even being away from home during Christmas, because I remember one camp I went out and it was over the Christmas season and I was in Thailand for Christmas, and it just felt weird because I wasn't near family. And so I had to make that decision. I was like, okay, I don't want to take this professionally any further because I was scared to leave the comforts of, the place that I grew up in. Which is funny because I made the decision in acting to leave home to pursue this, and it seemed to be working out so far.
But at least you can say, you know what, I've achieved something in Muay Thai because you got that belt of lightweight champion. So it's not as if you've tried to do something and then didn't succeed. I mean, with acting, at what point did you realize that actually I'm really good at this and I'm making a success of myself?
I I wouldn't go as far to say, oh yeah, I'm good at this. Not yet. Just because like there's still a few roles that I've auditioned for and didn't get, so then I have that voice, that little chip on my shoulder saying, okay, maybe you're not that good yet. But it wasn't until there was one acting class that I was in, and we were asked to perform a monologue, and it wasn't until after the monologue when the rest of the class was kind of stunned. And even to get to that point, my teacher at the time kind of had to talk me through the steps of getting there during the monologue. Like the choices I made at first were nowhere near where my teacher got me at the time. And so by the end of the scene, I'm there bawling my eyes out for an imaginary child who isn't in front of me. but I was still able to move the entire class. And then that was the moment I was like, okay, maybe I might be able to do this. I
Mm,
think like I'm not I think I'm not terrible. If I'm able to have this type of reaction, I think there might be something here. And then that was the moment I was like, okay, let's really give this a shot.
mm. And how do you measure success? I mean, how? I mean, lots of people measure success in different ways. How do you measure success?
Personally, peace of mind.
Yeah.
That's my measure of success. Peace of mind and being able to give back to the community.
Mm,
Um, I started a charity. I'm trying to carve out some more time to focus on it a lot more. To which the reason why I feel like I'm not focusing on it as much as I can is because I don't think I'm successful yet. Um,
mm,
Not to say that I'm not grateful for every opportunity that's come across my table and I've been able to take advantage of. And my friends will all say, "Oh, you are successful," and I'll graciously take the compliment. But in my eyes, I don't think I'll see myself as a success until my charity is pretty much running itself.
mm. I mean, we'll talk about that charity. It is on my list to talk about because I've read up on it and it's great. I mean, obviously, success or being well known. I mean, you sir are very recognizable to me. You know, I've seen you in
No,
quite a few shows. So you know, when I got that email from your PR company, I was like, yes, definitely, I want him on the show. So that's really, really good. I mean, acting is probably one of the hardest professions that people don't realize how hard it is. There's a lot of rejection. There's a lot of auditions. I mean, how do you handle the ups and downs of being rejected? Because a lot of people would just leave the audition with the sides and just forget about it. I mean, how do you deal with the ups and downs?
um, living life, remembering that there's more to life than just auditioning and acting.
Mm,
And that's really helped me um, forget about the auditions that I go to. There was a friend of mine who does this thing where it's like after his audition, he'll like before he goes to his audition, he'll get tickets to go see a movie. So
mm,
after his audition, he has something else to look forward to.
mm,
Whereas a lot of actors after their audition, they'll go home and then they'll just brood over the choices that they made and other choices that they could have done. So, but for me, it's like I just try my best to remember there's other things going on, and to enjoy just going for a walk, watching the sunset, going and cooking, enjoying food. But then at the same time, knowing and understanding the work that it takes to go in to an audition and even going to set. To quote the late, great Kobe Bryant, he says the only people that worry are the people who didn't do the work.
mm,
And that was a big thing too earlier on when I was auditioning. And I think about after the audition, I think about, oh man, I could have done this choice. I could have done this choice. And the reality is, if I thought of those things before the audition, then I wouldn't be worried
mm,
afterwards. So
mm.
then making sure that I'm putting in all the work and all the effort that I possibly can. So after the audition, I'm not left thinking, oh man, I could have done better.
Mm. I mean,
So that's also a key thing.
do you enjoy auditions? Because I know that some people hate them, some people love them, and there's a lot of people out there that say auditioning is an art form in itself. It really is. I mean, how do you find auditioning? Do you enjoy it?
Me personally, I love auditioning. Um, and I equate all the hours that I've spent training to be for the audition room.
Mm,
Um, because the reality of it is when you do an audition, you are responsible as the actor to make the choices. to create this compelling character that a director or a writer is going to see and be like, yeah, that's the person that we want. Because quite frankly, if you get the job and you're on set, you can be lazy and just go to the director or writer and just be like, hey, what did you want me to do? Right? So it's like you don't have to work as hard once you get the job.
Yeah.
So all the training and everything, getting into the audition and realizing that it's my responsibility to make these choices, to ask the questions, that's where I think the fun is, because you're creating a character, whether or not you get the job, you're creating a character that nobody has ever seen before. And so I find that like the most beautiful thing about auditioning is you're creating something that is new and nobody else has seen this, and even if somebody else comes into the room and they try to make the same choices that you do, it's still going to be a different performance. So
Yeah, of
I
course.
really I love auditioning.
I mean, with obviously casting and auditions, diversity and inclusion is definitely been a focus in the industry over the last couple of years. I mean, have you seen any change in the casting scene for people from an ethnic background?
Yeah. There's a lot of there's a lot more casting that they kind of open it up and make it an open call as opposed to making it specific for Caucasian actors. But at the same time, it's like there's also a downside to it where I feel like some stories kind of get watered down because they're focusing on diversity as an importance, where as opposed to just worrying about the story and just trying to get, the best product, now they're trying to pander to an audience of, oh, we need to make sure it's diverse so we can get an audience in. And I think it kind of reduces the story to a degree where I don't think casting yet is doing their due diligence in terms of casting a big enough net for diversity where they have their casting pool that they're satisfied with and they'll pick from that, whereas that pool might not be big enough for the role that you're looking for. So I think there's still a long way to go in terms of that.
I mean, I think there are a few like sort of roles out there that are starting to change and to make waves. For example, Supergirl, and I'm talking about the movie from The Flash. The actress, I think she's Latino, and a lot of fans out there are saying, "Wait a second, she should be blonde haired and all that lot." And for me, it doesn't matter because we're still going to get an interpretation of Supergirl. It doesn't matter race or anything. Yeah. It's still that character, and I'm just loving it. I really am, and it needs to be more like that. It needs to have more higher profile. I mean, it's like Batwoman as well, and I just think it's fantastic. But do you feel that it's got to start with the writers to actually, come up with good stories that are diverse, or do you think it is down to the casting?
It's everybody that needs to really step up to the plate, from the director to the writers to even hair and makeup. Your hair and makeup team sometimes don't know how to work with certain textures of hair. They don't know, even now down to the lighting. Sometimes they don't know how to light a certain color of skin. So it's like everybody really needs to up their game in terms of the knowledge of their area in filmmaking when it comes to diversity.
Talking about casting as well, I had Chad Rook on the show a bit of time ago, and he's a Canadian actor. He's in, I think, the Resident Evil film that's coming out very soon, and he was saying that it's quite difficult for Canadian actors to get into American shows because there is like a preference over American actors. I mean, do you find that? Have you witnessed that? I think that is crazy. I mean,
Oh,
why?
yeah. Um, my opinion on that stems to kind of more our government. Um, it's very divided in terms of how well they want to fund the arts, as
Mm,
well as they keep it very separate. So, like for example, I was born and raised and started acting in Toronto, and I wouldn't audition for stuff that would be shooting in Vancouver. And then when I finally did move to Vancouver, all of a sudden my auditions for the Toronto project started to dwindle. And I learned it's because there's tax breaks that each city, each province gets with their production. So they hire locally there. Now, if I was in the States, there's absolutely no discrepancy if I were to live in Los Angeles, but I were to book in Atlanta or to book in New York or to book in
mm,
Seattle. And so that division really separates or like waters down the talent that we have, and it reduces our opportunities. And unfortunately, America sees that,
mm,
or it's been a pattern in the past where they can't find the best talent for that city, so then they just end up bringing American actors.
mm,
And it's no fault of their own, except times have changed and now you have better actors. So now we, as Canadian actors, kind of have to re-imprint ourselves and prove that there's talent up here.
mm,
Um, and the thing that I still cringe at is when a production comes to Canada, they would have already cast their number one and number two as Americans already, bringing the production over. Whereas, why not give us the shot, give us the chance? And that's one thing that I was really grateful for. It's weird to say where it's like I was happy for COVID because a lot of productions now gave opportunities for Canadians to have that number one bill on their project.
yeah.
So a lot of my friends got their first leads this year and last year, and I couldn't be more happier for them.
Do you know what? I think it's all crazy because, you're talking about these American companies, but they shoot in Vancouver. I mean, the amount of stuff that gets shot in Vancouver is crazy. So to not
Yeah.
use that talent pool that's local, I just think it's shocking. I really, really do. I mean, how competitive are you, and how competitive is the scene in Vancouver? I mean, because everyone I tend to interview, they live in Vancouver. So it
Hmm.
must be just full of actors.
Yeah, there's a very heavy um community in Vancouver, but I think I have an advantage over that because coming from Toronto, we had a much larger acting community, so it was a
Mm,
lot more vicious in terms of the amount of competition that you had. So you had to make sure you're on your P's and Q's
mm,
when you go into an audition room, and not to, you know, downplay the talent that's in Vancouver, but I remember walking into my first couple of auditions and you just had other actors just hanging out there and laughing. And there was this one actor I even remember who I'm there in my zone looking at my sides, and he looked over on my sides and he saw that I had notes and annotations on it. And he kind of laughed and looked over at his friend and was like, "Hey, oh, we have one of these guys this time." And I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go make my choices. What are you gonna do when you walk in? Like,
mm,
what preparation did you have? And I attribute that to there just being less actors and there's more opportunities in Vancouver. So it's like if they
mm,
don't get that job, they're ready to just say, "Oh, I'll get the next one." Whereas in Toronto, you try to make that audition count because there aren't that many opportunities compared to your competition.
Mm, mm. And it's always good to be prepared. I mean, obviously, if you, I suppose, ask that guy how many auditions he's been to in the last God knows how long, I'm sure it's going to be a hell of a lot more than you. But
Yeah.
talking about the first time that I saw you on screen, Christmas is just around the corner, and literally we're being prepared to put the Christmas tree up because we normally put it up the middle of November to get our
Brilliant.
money's worth out of all the decorations
Yeah,
because
of
I'm a bit,
course.
yeah, and to get in the spirit as well. And every year, Netflix have some awesome Christmas movies, and a movie that's definitely going to be watched again this year is Operation Christmas Drop, which is
Oh,
awesome.
brilliant.
And I had Janet Kidder on the show a while ago, and she's in that film as well.
Mhm.
If you could tell us a bit about that film and who you play and what that film meant to you, because it just looks an awesome film to actually make.
Yeah. Well, to start with, like being a part of that project was really fun because it was an island Christmas. And we shot on location in Guam, so that was exciting in itself, is getting to be in a tropical location. Um, and the story was also very, very fun, where it's about spreading the Christmas joy in a
Mm,
different way, where it's more so about the community in that area getting together and just figuring out ways so everybody can have some kind of fortune during the holidays.
mm,
Um, and so for Operation Christmas Drop, I play a character named John Michael, where he works with the Air Force Base, but he took some time off to go back to the village and take care of some family things, to where it's the village that kind of gives insight to why this Operation Christmas Drop is essential for that
mm,
area. Um, and oh, it was such a fun time working with Alexander and Kat and creating this environment that's real.
mm,
So for the viewers, they see this and it's like it's a real thing, where there are these isolated islands within the South Pacific that need this attention, and over the holidays, like, they have nothing. So
mm,
not to, what's the word? Not to make it political or anything, but good on the Air Force for taking this initiative, and it's money out of their pockets
mm,
to help out when and where they can over the holiday season.
definitely. And you know what? It breaks my heart when you see on Facebook where parents have got piles of presents, absolute piles of presents for their kids. And my dad always had a rule that if on Boxing Day, which is the day after, which I don't think you celebrate over in Canada, but the
Yeah, no,
next day,
Canadians have Boxing Day as well.
oh, brilliant! Finally, someone that has Boxing Day as well. If I can't name the presents that I've been given, they get taken away and given away. So literally, I always was appreciative of everything I get. And with my girls, we don't spend a lot on them because it's more about the spirit, and it's all about
Yeah.
family and being together. So it's an awesome movie. So I'm definitely going to get the kids to watch it again this year.
There.
And the true test is when you finish watching it and what you feel. Is what you're taking away from it. So talking about feelings, I want to talk about Maid because this is such an emotional roller coaster. You know,
Oh my goodness.
I thought it was going to be like a bit of a comedy, like someone down on their luck, and you know, but wow,
Yeah.
tears one episode. There's a couple of times that I laughed and then cried again. I mean, if you could
Yeah.
tell us a bit about who you play, and a bit about the show, because it's just awesome. It's just brilliant.
I play a character named Ethan, and he is the best friend to um, Nick Robinson's character, Sean. and pretty much Sean and Alex are in this relationship and they have a kid, but then it turns out that Sean has abusive tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I play the best friend to Sean, and I'm kind of there to reinforce the opinion that Sean is a good guy. And Alex is Margaret Qualley's character is in the wrong for accusing this good guy and taking his daughter away from him. Where in reality, like there's I still get messages from people on Instagram and they'll say it's like, "Oh man, I hated your character." It's like, well, I guess I did a good job there. But
to be honest, I mean, he was so Nick Robinson's character Sean. He part of you felt sorry for him because obviously he seems to be in a vicious cycle. He's obviously suffering. And then obviously you're like one of his best mates. So I can understand why people didn't like your character because you were so associating with him. But it's just a fantastic written show and just made amazing. I mean, 1.9 billion minutes watched. That's 1.9 billion people that has seen your face, that has seen you act on screen. I suppose from an actor's point of view, being in a popular show must feel absolutely amazing. But how crazy is that? 1.9 billion minutes watched.
I gotta give just credit to the production and the team behind it. Because you're saying with the writing being so brilliant. I remember reading the first episode and I was laughing and crying by the end of it because Alex is just not getting a single break. And I'm reading this anxious, pacing in my place, just like when is stuff gonna work for her? And so it's like knowing that I was moved reading it, like only came to, I guess, make sense that it would also move all these audience members that gave it a shot. And they got glued to it, and 1.9 billion minutes of viewing time. That's still
crazy,
insane,
isn't it? I mean, to be honest, I wasn't going to watch it, and then it didn't seem like my cup of tea. And I tend to find that when I watch something that I didn't, think it was my cup of tea, I end up getting glued to, and I end up watching it, like binge watching it. I mean, what was your fondest memory on set? I mean, did you film this during the pandemic under all the restrictions?
Yeah, this was the first production or first major production back filming in Vancouver. So that was exciting because on one side of things, not being able to work was, as an actor, it's exhausting because it's like what else do I do with my time? But then on the other side of things, it was rewarding because all these people are at home during the pandemic, and it's the arts that saves everybody's mental health to a degree. Whether it's they lose themselves in music or they lose themselves in Netflix or Amazon shows. So knowing that I was going to get to be part of a project that helped people escape this pandemic was also a very exciting feeling. And it was also very new because being in the industry as long as I have, all of a sudden these new restrictions are in place. And there was that clip that went viral from Tom Cruise's production where he was yelling and it's like that's the reality of it now. It's like, okay, well, if we want to make art now, we have to still make art responsibly. And so following all the protocols and everything, that was an eye-opener where they have, I don't know what their title is, COVID enforcers, COVID protocol enforcers, where it's like, it's a new position on set.
Just call them all Tom Cruise. And it'd be fine.
and they'll just peek around a corner and catch you and just point at you and just like signal to put your mask up. And they're diligent. And at first it's like, oh, I get it. Come on, just give me a minute. I just pulled it down. And then it's like you learn where it's like, okay, yeah, no, this has to be followed in order for, this to all happen and happen safely. And thankfully there were no COVID scares during the production, because I heard of some productions where there'd be a COVID scare and the production would have to shut down for a week, which is such an inconvenience to all the aspects of filming. So to have been blessed with not having any COVID scares, and there was also a nice comfort in getting tested 3 times a week as well, because even in my personal life, just knowing that I'm hanging out with people and they don't have to be concerned about if I have it or not, because I'm getting tested so often. So that was fun. And I'd have to say my fondest memory was getting to first meet Andie MacDowell. She's in the 90s, she was the sweetheart of the screen, and she still has that charismatic, character trait about her, where from the makeup trailer to on set, she's warm, she's inviting, and it's just fun, kind of like I pursued this industry because I wanted to meet my on-screen idols. So being able to meet somebody who and that was also a fun moment too, was we were filming in February and we had wrapped and we went back to the hotel, and I just wanted to wind down, and I turned on the TV and it was Groundhog Day. So I'm watching, somebody that I'm working with, and it was a little surreal in that moment, just knowing that, okay, I'm going to go back to work tomorrow with that person that I'm watching right now. And it's just,
wow.
It's part of the movie magic and part of the reason why I love doing this.
Her character as well. I watched an interview with her in the UK, and she was saying her character is obviously far from what she's like in real life. I mean, her character in the series is just off the charts. It's off the walls, literally. Yeah. She is loony as a bat. She really is. But it's quite nice to hear that you've met one of your idols and they've been nice, because I think that's our greatest fear, is to meet someone that we've looked up to or we've admired over the years, and then they turn out to be not very nice. So it's quite nice to find out that she was nice.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's the reason why, and the understanding that you can be like, oh, this is why you're still working after so long, is because of your personality. Whereas the ones that, aren't as nice, when you meet them and you realize and you see the pattern where it's like, oh, maybe that's why you haven't been working that much recently.
Yeah. But no, it's good. I mean, we've got an actress over in the UK called Joanna Lumley, that she's like part of history now in the UK, but she's always said that she'll never turn down a job. She's super nice to fans, to everyone, which is really nice. So that's our Andie MacDowell sort of comparison. But let's talk about this charity, Play On Foundation, because obviously I know you mentioned earlier on about you feel that once you get more famous, I suppose your platform to actually get this foundation moving a bit faster. I mean, if you could tell us a bit about the foundation and what the viewers and listeners can do to get involved or find out more.
Well, it's all online at the moment. It's been a little difficult, especially during COVID, to get the name out more, because like we've wanted to throw events for it as well. Hopefully we can start doing that soon. But www.letsplayon.org. Play On Foundation was started by me and some friends who went through passing of one of my friends due to a brain aneurysm.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that kind of set this in motion was he was 25 years old, and I always associated aneurysms with older people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a problem that the youth have to face or young adults have to face, but the reality of it is that number is only rising um, within the younger adult community as well as within the youth. And so doing my research, I learned that aneurysms within the neurological field are the least funded in terms of research.
Mm.
So the goal is to allocate these raised funds specifically towards brain aneurysm research in detection and prevention.
Mm.
Because when you get when you get an aneurysm, you need to know how to react, and you need to react fast, or
Mm.
else there would be severe damage to your body from it. And even in respects to that, it wasn't until decades ago that they started putting out PSAs for strokes and how to identify
Mm.
those, right?
Yeah.
So it's like for these, understanding what a ruptured aneurysm is and how to react is very important. And on the prevention side of things, it's one of the things that you don't look for unless there's a problem.
Mm.
So I want to say 1 in 90 people have an aneurysm and
Wow.
don't know about it. And
Wow.
it's that thing where it's like you don't know about it, and there's a good chance that you'll never know about it because it won't rupture. You're not doing anything that's going to cause it to rupture. But being able to know that you have an aneurysm is also very important because President Joe Biden um, had a brain aneurysm. It was detected, and he was able to have surgery to get it fixed. And that's a very costly procedure.
Mm.
Whereas I think checking for aneurysms needs to be, especially among the younger audience, it has to be as frequent as your a checkup, just to make sure that everything's fine.
Mm.
At least once in your teen life, to like it should be something that could be subsidized by the government to some degree, where it's like doctors all doctors say when an aneurysm case happens is it can happen to anybody.
Mm.
And it's such an unsatisfying answer
Yeah.
when you want to wonder why something happened.
Mm.
So that's the goal, is just to fund as much money and funnel as much money towards aneurysm research so
Mm.
it does become a mainstream condition that is looked after.
Mm. And I think the key is definitely awareness, is isn't it? Is getting the information out there. So on your website, is there a part where people can register for like a newsletter to find out information? Have you got a mailing list, or is that yet to come?
Still yet to come. The website there is specifically for donations at the moment.
Yep.
So just trying to get the word out so people can donate. We are a registered charity as well, so if people are, interested in getting their receipts for tax purposes, we
Mm.
also are able to provide that as well. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully down the line, like we'll get that mailing list ready and we'll be able to make a bigger impact.
Awesome. I will make sure I put the link at the bottom of this video. So if you're watching now, if you look at the description, it'll have the website there for you to go on. So last few questions before we bid our farewells, because it's been great chatting with you.
Yeah.
So on your IMDb, I always look at the trivia. And for some reason,
Okay.
people are lacking trivia, and I think we
Hmm.
need to put some more spicier stuff on your trivia. So
Okay.
when it, don't worry, it's not too bad. So the last time that you laughed out loud.
Ooh. Um, last time I laughed out loud. Um, I was watching. What was I watching yesterday? Bicentennial Man yesterday. The Robin Williams film.
Yeah.
And when there's so many funny moments there because Robin plays such a subdued version that you usually see.
Mm.
And so the jokes were hitting differently as well. At the same time, I think another time that I may have laughed out loud was something goofy that my partner did the other day. Can't quite remember it right now, but uh, she she's
That's
a funny
okay.
one that yeah.
You know what? We need to laugh a lot more in life because apparently laughing is a great healer. It does wonders for
Yeah.
our mental state and our bodies.
And
Um,
that was a good segue from Robin Williams because Patch Adams, if you remember that movie, that's what that one
yeah,
was about too.
yeah, it's awesome. Patch Adams, absolutely. It's heartbreaking though. It really is heartbreaking, as well at the same time. What is your greatest fear?
Ooh, greatest fear. Greatest fear, I guess, would be to not leave my mark. And my mark currently being that charity. So
Mm.
if for some reason some tragedy takes me out, I would I'll be sad in the afterlife knowing that I wasn't able to finish what I set out to do.
And that's exactly the same fear that I've got. You know, as in the words of Christopher Reeve, who's been my idol since I can ever remember, he used to say, "Leave the world a better place than you came into it, and take give more than you take," which is another thing that he said, which I think is fantastic. But for me, with kids, I'm like a memory maker. My job is to make these wonderful memories for my girls, and to obviously leave a legacy. And it's my
That's
fear
beautiful.
as well that I want to leave that legacy, but a positive legacy, like
Yeah.
my dad has done for me. But then, what's your most memorable fan encounter? I mean, have you had lots of fan encounters? Any unusual ones? Any creepy ones, or
Um,
really good ones?
for myself, I feel like they've kind of been normal, and I'd have to say, in terms of fan encounters that I've experienced, my favorite one wasn't for me. Um, I was on a show called Take Two, and I was working with Rachel Bilson from the OC,
Mm.
and we had some time to go out, the cast. So we went out um, downtown Vancouver, and we're walking on the sidewalk, and a group was walking towards us and past us, and they were like, they were you, they were separated where the girls were in front and the guys were behind. So the girls passed nonchalantly, whatever, in their own mind, and then the guys passed, and there was this guy who was like, I'd say he was like he's your typical athletic jock,
Mm.
and the guys pass, and then it was one of the guys was like, "Hey, wait a minute, isn't that Summer?" And we just kept walking, and so it's like to think that this guy that I wouldn't have assumed was an OC fan clocked Rachel Bilson unsure and tried to acknowledge it. I think that was actually like my a fun moment in that fan encounter world.
I mean, obviously, as you're getting more well known, I am sure that you're going to get lots of fan attention on social media as well as other platforms. I mean, are you getting ready for that? Have you got an approach in mind? Um,
Yeah. I hope to get to a level of notoriety where it's the I know you from somewhere, but I can't quite place it. That's where I want to get to.
yeah.
And and then if it just so happens that I want to follow through with it and say where I'm from and then to get that acknowledgement, sure, but that's the degree that I want to get to. Where it's like You're where are you from again? That's that's when I think I've succeeded in this
which
industry.
which I'm sure you're gonna have very soon, because I can't believe that you don't get that now, to be honest. But no, you know what, Xavier, it's been an absolute joy chatting with you. I'm looking at the time thinking, wow, I could chat to you for hours. I really could.
Oh
I've
wow.
really
Yeah.
enjoyed myself. What are you
Likewise.
working on next? Are you just putting your feet up and relaxing now after Maid, and working on other things?
I have a movie coming out next year. It's called Easter Sunday. Look out for that. It's starring Filipino comedian Jokoy.
Okay.
Check out his Netflix specials to see how funny he is, and just know that he's going to be starring in a movie next year, and I get to be a part of that. And it's a all Filipino ensemble, and yeah, it was
Awesome.
produced by Steven Spielberg's production company, Emblem Productions, and
Wow.
it's gonna be a fun one. And other than that, I'm just trying to get this truck working so I can get back
Bless
on the
you.
road.
Bless you. Lots of love and yeah, for that truck, and before you know it, you'll be on your adventures. I'm so jealous. That is one thing that I've always wanted to do, is go across. Saying that though, I've always wanted to go to Canada, because when I was a kid, there was a show called Due South that was on, and it had a
Yeah,
Canadian Mountie and a deaf husky called Baker. And I could just remember. I know it's based in the States, but it always got me intrigued if all the police in Canada dress like that, because I was
yeah.
just in like, oh. But Canada looks amazing. I definitely want to visit. And where you filmed Maid looks beautiful, absolutely
Oh man,
beautiful. So it's
Victoria, British
definitely on my
Columbia.
travel list. Yeah, but
Well, I hope
Xavier,
you make
look,
it out.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Once the kids get a bit older, and then we can leave them with my in-laws, and then we can come out.
Yeah.
But Xavier, you look after yourself, keep safe, and I look forward to seeing everything that you do in the future. And thank you for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much.